How can AI help us collaborate better and reach compliance faster? During the next 20 minutes, I will talk to you about combining AI and cross-functional collaboration for faster compliance. I am Veli-Matti Soukka, data business designer from Solita, Denmark, helping our customers with their data, AI, and sustainability transformations. Let's envision ourselves to a starting point of a new compliance project. We might know where we want to end up, but the path to the top is blurry. The road can take many forms. If the compliance project is about reaching minimum requirements, it might feel like a walk to Mount Doom. Whereas building for customer value or transforming the business might feel quite the opposite. In any scenario, internal expertise and data will help us paint a map for our journey. Let's start with usual pain points. New regulation triggers a new round of emails, spreadsheets, and confusion. So the new regulation landing on the tables of teams participating is seldom the only task that the teams are working with. This can easily lead into teams working in isolation. Subject matter experts define the requirements of reporting. Data teams wait for these requirements and squeeze them into their backlogs. And a third function reports the outputs to authorities or customers. Many times there's a limited shared systems or data structures for compliance in place. The existing data foundations have not been built with new compliance needs in mind. Data needs to be available and presented in a certain way. Therefore, new regulation is a data problem. Regulations include entities. Entities are things like products, suppliers, or assets which define the objects or subjects that we are interested in. These are usually very well known in companies. There's requirements. A regulation can come up with a requirement to fill some obligation or new threshold that needs to be met. And then there's evidence. There is the burden of showing evidence that these requirements are met. The good news is that these can be modeled, tracked, and automated. But what about the data? Where would this new set of data end up? Good news again. Compliance data is operational data, and the underlying data is for a big part already available somewhere in the company. But that data might not be centrally available. How to form clear expectations, requirements, backlog items, and deliver all this in a multi-team collaboration. Let's get back to our starting point. We just learned that compliance data is operational data, so you have already plenty packed for your road ahead. But your journey becomes quite heavy if you're carrying all of your packages with you. What about if you would have an AI friend who would be helping you selecting the necessary items that you take with you? Or what about the journey? At this point, you would want to move fast over the great swamp area of unclarity, align the goals of the teams, and start climbing towards the top already. You want to save as much time as possible for the climb, as that's where the surprises lurk and when you start to feel tired as well. AI can help you paint this map as well. So AI helped you pick up the necessary packages with you, painted the map, and all of a sudden you are getting a lift from an eagle over the swamp areas. Now you know where you're going, the climb can start. But this time, AI will not be that helpful. The climbing needs to be done by yourselves. How is this done in practice then? Let's break down Solita's 4-phase compliance framework into pieces. An approach that works for different legislations and domains. First step towards compliance is to gather context documents from legislation and optionally sample data from your systems. At this point, diverse teams gather into a kickoff workshop where, for example, data, sustainability, and finance teams define their desired state of future reporting. Questions like how often would you like to report, how granularly do we want to follow and gather our data, and which parts would we want to prioritize would be discussed. Based on the discussion, the outcome would be fed into a use case specific agentic workflow. Agentic workflow means that we have developed a workflow where AI-powered agents are given tasks to execute. Different agents have been specialized to do specific tasks and to work together towards a common goal that the cross-functional human team is steering. This agentic workflow is built on top of Solita's own large language model platform in the backend. This approach makes it a useful tool for running workshops and to handle even sensitive data, as the data is stored and processed in one place and the data flows are controlled by Solita. The approach gives possibilities to tailor the agents to specific tasks or to use different large language models for these specific assignments. A double materiality analysis or other type of risk analysis works well as an input in this phase. As an output from the context phase, the team iterates itself towards a prototype, which would typically come in the form of a conceptual data model, KPIs, or reports. A conceptual data model in this example would be a presentation of how the business operates and presented in a way that it makes sense to the sustainability, data, and business teams. We use this conceptual data model, fill it with synthetic data produced by the agentic workflow, and now we can present how a ready-made visualization, KPI, or report could look like when the actual project is finished. When working with AI and especially agents, it's important to keep in mind that LLM hallucinations can be a real problem. Agentic workflows work well in situations where we want to create common understanding or blueprint a desired state, and that is exactly what we are doing in the prototyping phase. Iterating to what good looks like for the teams involved. At this point, we start to climb the mountain. Now we have the blueprint of how good looks like in our hands. Now we need to fill it with real data. Let's jump into the next phase, which is the data discovery phase. And in this phase, we can again use the agentic workflow tool to search the desired data from the source systems, or maybe tables that have been extracted from the enterprise resource planning system. We could also instruct an agent to make validated guesses of where the data could exist if we feed it with descriptions of our system's landscape. Nevertheless, at this point, hands need to go dirty. So not all the data will be available, but with the help of the synthetic report, we see the value of the data if we find it from the existing systems, or if we choose to start measuring a new metric, for instance, in our production line. Most enterprises have an operating model already in place. So coming up with a new one is quite a brave suggestion. But at the data discovery phase, we would compare the conceptual data model that we created with the existing one and start building gap between those models to reach the wanted stage. The whole idea of fast-tracking the design phase is to free up time for strategic work, ease of collaboration, and focus on building the value. The last step is to start building the data pipelines, transformations, analytics, and data science capabilities based on use case specific needs in your own systems. At this point, we create a scalable production-ready solution and operationalize the project. One very important thing is that the approach makes it possible for you to hold the data within your own systems and potentially be using third-party tooling to enrich your data. So now, one regulation project is ready, but the data foundation to build the next one stays. The organization has learned how to deliver these projects, and operational data is used for compliance, but also for insights about the business. So let's summarize what the agentic workflow tool does. It reads and interprets context documents and sample data. From there, it identifies entities, requirements, and evidence. And based on that, it proposes data models and schemas. It produces a gap analysis that highlights the missing data. And when this is done, we produce outputs that make sense to different audiences. Why use AI? Well, speed is one thing, but to make the data foundation robust, structure is the real game, and AI is very good at that. AI can read hundreds of documents without getting tired, and an agent can be specified to work on exactly one task, and those can be specified to work in a specific order. This same structure brings consistency, which can be used across diverse teams and different projects. AI can create drafts, which accelerates alignment between different teams. AI also provides structured outputs, which enable system integration, data productization, and standardization. Let's look ahead a bit. Compliance projects aren't going anyway, but it will be the people who will be driving the vision. But AI can support them. It's the teams who adopt new ways of working that can turn compliance into a capability and those insights to decisions. When we treat regulatory data as reusable data products, we can build on top of accumulated knowledge, and that's a way to turn compliance projects into business advantage. Thanks for listening. Reach out if you want to see a more detailed demo applied to your company's context, discuss data, AI, and sustainability transformation, and get a ride from the eagle over the unclarity and swampy areas.